Awesome. So let's start off with using the circles method for product design question. Has anyone heard of the circles method before? Does anyone know what it stands for or any background on it? No? Okay. I'm going to assume the answer is no. Okay. So I'll jump into really what does each letter of circles stand for. And the first thing I want to talk about is like, what are product design questions, right? So this is one of the few interview type formats that you will see in any Faang interview. And they typically test your product design ability. So what that might include is something like, how can you improve Microsoft Teams as a feature? Or a question that I actually got during my internship interview is create an experience for Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, to manage his schedule easily and efficiently. You can also redesign the iPhone homepage when you first unlock your phone. Or if you were the CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, what new product line would you come up with to increase your revenue? Why? Who's the target customer? And how do you reach them? So these are obviously a broad set of questions, but I wanted to go through a few examples of the question type. And then we can delve into how can you use the circles method? What is it? And how do you apply it to these types of questions? Does anyone has anyone seen these type of questions already? If anyone has been doing interviews? Yes. Okay. Sure. Awesome. I don't know. I'm not trying to force you guys to engage. Sorry. I'm just trying to act like you guys are a class also.
That's fine. I'll try to be more engaged.
Don't worry. I will try to engage with you as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Awesome. Cool. So what interviews are looking for in, sorry, I don't know. I think the flow of this deck got a little messed up. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, yeah. Circle 16 is the C, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah. So let's review. Sorry, this won't happen in an actual class. I feel like I'm also like finishing this deck also at the same time. So apologies. But let's review each step of the circles method. Let's start with C, which stands for comprehending the situation. So I just gave you guys a bunch of interview type questions that you might be asked. Let's take the example of, what product line should the CEO of Amazon next invest in, right? When you're asked such a broad question, rather than just jumping at it and answering whatever thoughts first come to mind, first take a pause, take a deep breath, and comprehend that situation and comprehend the question that you're being asked. Obviously, it is a very broad question, and you will intentionally get some of these broad questions. So you are very much so entitled to asking any types of clarifying questions. So in the case of the product line, for example, you can ask like, what types of investments have they previously made? Who is it for? Or who is their target persona of Amazon today that they want to target? Or when do you want it to be available? Or how has the last product line worked? Like, these are just questions that come to the top of my mind. And you can tailor this set of questions, these 5 questions, to get more clarity on the situation that you're being actually asked. The next stage is I, where you can identify your customer personas. So once you've gotten a little bit more clarity about what is the scenario that you're being asked to solve, you can actually delve deeper into the specific customers that you're trying to solve this problem for, or create this product for, right? When anytime, if you are going to be a product manager, something to note is that you're always going to be solving problems for your customers or for the business. There's always someone that you're serving through your products and your technology. And so by identifying your customer personas and asking questions like, who are the demographic of the target population of the product line, or what challenges does this customer persona face, what goals or behaviors that they might have, your interviewer might actually respond and give you this information to help tailor your answer better and give an appropriate next step. So your interviewer might say like, hey, this persona is for anyone with Amazon Prime and anyone who gets Whole Foods deliveries on a weekly basis, for example. And they might be people who are tech employees or people who live in Seattle. Let's start off with that domain. And then the types of behaviors is that they like to purchase groceries once or twice a week. So you might get these kind of detail, which you didn't previously have when you just were comprehending the situation. And this is important because for different customer personas, you might actually solve the problem very differently, right? When you are trying to solve a problem for a 5-year-old kid and you're designing Disneyland experience for them versus designing an adult-only roller coaster, those personas are very, very different. And so the way that you're going to approach the answers are very different as a result of their behaviors and goals and their end-to-end. I'll take a pause there right now. Are there any questions, or does everything make sense so far?
No, it's good.
Okay. The next letter is R in circles. So R stands for reporting customer needs. So what can your customer achieve with your product and the problems that they need to be solved, right? So this might mean, let's take the example of the question related to Satya Nadella, right? So for that question, I said design, or let's take the Teams example. How can you improve Microsoft Teams, right? So the customer persona for that are people who are probably employees working at different companies who are leveraging Teams to communicate with each other, or people in the education department, or people who go to school and colleges and are interacting with other students, especially in a COVID environment, right? So in that context, what can your customer achieve with your product? They can achieve the ability to communicate virtually with another person. And the types of problems that they need to be solved is they're streamlining communication, they're able to share documents via Teams, they're able to collaborate together, they can take control of each other's screens and interact on each other's laptops very easily and chat really quickly and send each other team messages, right? There's so many different types of customer needs. And when you're approaching these problems with your interviewer, it's really important to just talk out loud, right? Don't think that there's one right or one wrong answer. Just sharing all your thoughts and just your thought process really will show to the interviewer that you're thinking about all of these scenarios in depth and very carefully. And you might actually get some guidance in return, right? So in the case of my Microsoft interview, when I started telling them multiple customer needs that I thought of, they started even actually leaning me towards a couple of the first customer needs that I mentioned rather than the last couple of needs, because they wanted me to continue going down that avenue to solving the problem. And you might get that same nudge from your interviewer. But the more you're able to share, the more your interviewer is able to put themselves in your brain and understand how does, Shruti solve problems in interviews and how critical and analytical is she thinking during this process. Number 4 is cutting through prioritization. So another C, right? So right now, so far, you've been able to comprehend the situation. You've been able to identify your customer personas and report your customer needs. This is already a lot of information that you're communicating back and forth with the interviewer and having to keep up. And so once you're actually cutting through, in order to cut through prioritization, you have to have a list of solutions or sub features that you actually might be using to go and solve the problem, right? So let's take, how can you improve Microsoft Teams, right? So today with Microsoft Teams, if you want to upload files or upload any documents, it's a very back and forth and tedious process, right? So that might be the customer need that I'm trying to solve right now. How can we make a seamless experience where we share these files, etc.? And what are the sub features that we're trying to solve? We can actually see, okay, customer satisfaction, business impact, contribution to revenue, and engineering constraints, right? These are all factors that you can use to help solve those problems. So you might think of multiple sub features. It might be attaching, being able to share your PowerPoint really easily can happen over OneDrive, for example. If it just says share via OneDrive, one button, that might be a way to solve the problem. Or another way to solve the problem might be, okay, can I quickly attach an email that would be attached to your Teams invite, for example. And let me know if I'm being super specific. Obviously, I use Microsoft Teams every day at work, and you guys might not be as familiar, so I'm happy to use another example if at all there's any confusion. But once you think of these different user stories or different sub features that you can solve, you can create something called a user story, which essentially is a one-liner that summarizes the feature that you're going to create. And how you use these factors to rate the user stories is very important, right? As a product manager in my day-to-day, prioritization is literally one of my main jobs every hour of the day, right? So I'm constantly working with engineers, I'm working with other product managers, I'm working with designers, and I'm getting so many different inputs. And I'm also talking to the customer every day as well, and the business needs, and trying to manage and really just navigate all of them and help understand which is the most important during this time period and why should we prioritize this over others. And so you want to convey that skill. It is a very important skill to have as a product manager, and you want to convey your capability of having that skill to your interviewer, right? So these factors are typically these 4 factors are common factors that usually as PMs we use to evaluate different user stories and different sub features. And I highly recommend you use this as the basis point, and then you can always grow from there. And obviously your interview is also somewhat of a conversation, so you can see how your interviewer is reacting to some of the things you're saying and take next steps. The next thing is being able to list all your solutions in that prioritized way, right? So after you've gone through that process of evaluating, okay, solution A and B are better than D and F, and I want to prioritize it in this way, go ahead and relist all of your solutions to your interviewer. Why is this important, right? You probably just had, like I said, being able to prioritize is one of the most important skills as a PM, and you're just trying to convey that to your interviewer. So now you've been talking to your interviewer for almost a few minutes about how you're going to prioritize, what you're thinking, what are your thought processes. So it's really important to recap everything that you just discussed in a very organized way to show that you can actually, collect all your thoughts in that organized manner and share that back to them, and how that really plays one-to-one in my day-to-day job, for example. After I talk to engineers, designers, PMs, I got all these inputs. Typically what I do is literally summarize all these inputs, put all of these same people on an email thread even, and explain my thought process of priority and say, here are the approaches that we should take, A, B, C, and let's go execute them. And here are the timelines attached to them, right? And so you want everyone to be in the loop. You want everyone to be on the same page. And so that's why it's really important that you reiterate your solutions after you've had that prioritization conversation. I know I'm speeding through these things. Any questions so far, or are we still good?
I'm still good. Cool.
The next one is E, evaluating your trade-offs. And so after you have all of these solutions, you can actually, this is similar to prioritization in the sense that if you only have so much bandwidth with engineering constraints, you have to decide as your PM, what are the trade-offs of each one? And this does play a role in your previous, in C's cut through the prioritization, because you're able to actually understand which one do you want to execute on first. So even when you internally prioritize, you can have all the different reasons and you can list those solutions back to the rest of your team. And then they can help you evaluate trade-offs. But when you're in an interview, obviously you have to explain that skill to the interviewer. So evaluating your trade-offs by showing the pros and cons of each solution can help the interviewer understand how you're thinking about problems based on business impact, based on customer value, based on how much revenue it's going to bring, and etc. And lastly, it's really important to summarize. Simply saying hey, as soon as you get asked, how can you improve Microsoft Teams, just jumping into everything and saying, hey, I think you should do A, B, C, D, and not explaining any logic. The reason why the circle method exists is really to explain all of your logic and reasoning throughout the process. But it is important to summarize what is your ultimate recommendation, right? So if you have 5 features that you came up with after you finished your prioritization and you ended up listing it and you evaluated all the trade-offs, you want to summarize in a very succinct manner what features you think are best for this product and how does it solve the user's needs and why will you prioritize them over others. And that's really the whole part of execution, right? You always in an email, for example, to my PMs, engineers, and designers, I will summarize everything that we discussed all over again and attach timelines to each thing on how we can go ahead and execute it. So everyone knows, okay, what impact are we bringing when we start executing and why? And everyone is aligned. When you have alignment, you have peace and you're able to reach a lot of success. So highly recommend you use the circles method the next time you go ahead and answer any of your product design questions. So the second topic that we're going to talk about today is common mistakes in a PM interview. So I don't know how you guys feel, but I know just thinking back to when I was interviewing to become a PM, I definitely would get stressed when I was put under the spot, even though I did a lot of preparation. And so sometimes I would make a lot of mistakes like during the interview, honestly. Like it really took a few times practicing before I got the hang of it. And so it's okay to make mistakes in a PM interview. You're going to learn each time as you go. I just want to preface that. I also want to call out some of the common PM mistakes that are made in interviews, and hopefully you can catch those even before you think about saying them. And this can just be a checkpoint of, really making sure that you're on the right track to answering your questions. So in the past weeks, I know that you guys have learned about the STAR method, and then today I talked a little bit about the circle method. And, you may have been familiar with other frameworks as well. So now that you're framework overloaded, that can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? So you have this structure to leverage to answer your questions. But the problem with that also is that you don't want to get super attached to this framework per se, right? So you don't want to say, hey, C is for this, and then I is for this. So here's my answer to this part of the question, right? You want to tell the interviewer a story and show them that you're thinking through each thing. So my recommendation to you is to not get stuck to the structure. Like if you have to drop off for some reason the R from STAR, or if you have to not be so strict in saying, hey, S for this, I'm going to answer XYZ to the interviewer, that might actually throw them off because they might think that you're not able to think critically or analytically. And you might come across as actually not as prepared and natural and as compared to other candidates. So this is something that obviously takes practice, and I highly recommend that you do multiple practice questions, whether it's with Interview Kickstart people or by yourself, looking in the mirror and answering the questions. So yeah, the second thing that I want to talk about is time management, right? So for me, when I get super excited, I just start speeding through topics and I will just talk really quickly. And even though I prepared a 15-minute presentation, it might end up being 5 minutes, frankly speaking. So the other way is also true, where I might be going on and on about C in circles, and I only have 5 minutes left, and I have to get through the rest of the steps when I'm answering my product design question, right? So time management is very important. And I'm a true believer that time management comes with practice, right? So being able to look at the clock on the top right of your laptop and also keep tabs on how far is the interview going? How many questions do you have?
Want to become a software engineer at Google? You can, like thousands of our students. You just need to learn from those who've already cleared Faang interviews. At Interview Kickstart, our interview prep courses are developed and taught live by 150 plus instructors from Tier 1 companies like Google and Facebook. Our courses are tailored to help you crack software engineering domain interviews, including back-end, full stack, machine learning, embedded systems, data science, and more. To learn more, book your free webinar slot today